Hi Bowl Bakers, you are in for a treat. Today my mom is sharing with us her recipe for Christmas pudding. My mom's recipes always do so well with you guys, and it's the holidays, so I thought this is the perfect timing. In this episode you're going to learn how to make it from scratch, but also I'm going to share with you my 5 tips for steaming pudding. If you haven't done it before, it's actually really easy if you follow my steps, so stay tuned for that. The first step we want to do for our pudding is to prepare our fruit, and I did that the night before. Here's what I did. So the night before, get yourself a nice big bowl, add in your raisins, some sultanas, which FYI are golden raisins I just learned, and currants, which are a different type of grape, and I'm going to link how you can buy those on Amazon. And then also some prunes chopped. Into this I'm going to grate the zest of 1 lemon, and I'm also going to juice it. Next, I'm going to add in my alcohol. Now, my mom uses cider, which is a hard cider which has alcohol in it in Europe, or you can use a stout, whichever one you want. I chose stout today. Next, I'm going to add in some Irish whiskey. Now, I'm proud to say this is my family's Irish whiskey. It's O'Driscoll's from County Wexford, where I'm from. It's lovely and smooth, and it's perfect for this recipe. Give your fruit a stir so it's all coated. Put a lid on it, and then it sit on the countertop overnight for at least 12 hours. During this time, they'll plump up and hydrate and soak up all that alcohol. So here we are the next day, and we are going to make the base for our pudding. So I have my stand mixer here. Here I have softened butter, really lovely room temperature, so it whips up well. Next, we're going to add in some dark brown sugar. I love dark brown sugar because it has more flavor than light brown. In Europe, we use different types of brown sugars in our baking. Demerara, we have turbinado, we have muscovado. I have an article on my website explaining all the differences between those sugars in case you want to check that out. It's really interesting. Anywho, whip these up until they're nice and creamed for a few minutes on high speed. Our butter mixture is pale in color, so I'm going to add in our room temperature eggs one at a time. Let it blend in, and then you can continue to add the other. Okay, that's all of our eggs in there. Now we're going to add in our dry ingredients. Here I have some plain flour, all-purpose flour. Here I have a little bit of mixed spice. Now mixed spice is what they call in Europe pudding spice. It comes from Britain, and it is a mix of cinnamon and mixed spice and nutmeg and a few other things. I actually have a recipe on my website of how you can make your own at home. In America, the thing that's most closest to it is pumpkin pie spice. In goes a little bit more nutmeg, a little bit of baking soda to help it rise, and as always, salt to lift all those flavors. Just give those a mix together to combine the spices, make sure they get well mixed, and the raising agent. And then on low, we're going to add that into our mixer, like so. We're going to follow that by some fresh breadcrumbs. Now these are fresh breadcrumbs, not dried. If you want to use dried, you can use half the amount. In Ireland, it's very common to bake puddings with breadcrumbs. It's quite the done thing, and it's really lovely because it adds moisture, and it doesn't give it a savory flavor in case that's what you're worried about. It actually just is it's really yummy. To this, we are going to add in some finely grated bittersweet chocolate. I didn't know my mom added this to the pudding until she gave me the recipe. Really finely grated, in it goes. Lovely. Then some ground almonds. Similar to the breadcrumbs, the ground almonds are going to soak up the liquid that's in there, and also while steaming, so it just plumps up everything and it just makes it really soft. Give those a little bit of a mix together, like so. And then the last thing we're going to do is add in a little bit of grated apple. Here I have a Granny Smith grated apple. You can also, in Europe, in Ireland, use a Bramley apple. Adds extra moisture, a little bit of natural sweetness. Lovely. Here's something that's a little bit funny, coffee essence. Now, if you haven't heard of this before, I only know it because my mom has had the same jar literally since the 80s. I kid you not. Anyway, it's called coffee essence. In Ireland, it's a brand Earl or something. And then in America, it's called Camps. And I'm going to put a link on my website. You can easily make this yourself just using granulated coffee and a little bit of water. And similar to the stout and similar to the chocolate, this is going to add depth of flavor. And then lastly, our fruit from last night. Just look how plump those raisins are. The whole mix literally doubled in size because it soaked up all that liquid. Now, if you don't have all of the fruit to make my pudding, you can substitute it with a different fruit if you want. That's not a problem. Or you can use more raisins or more something else. Whatever you like. You know, you can even do cranberries, although it's not traditional. You know, you can do dried cranberries and things like that. Now, for our last spin, we're just going to mix this until it comes together. And that is our pudding. There's so much fruit in here. So this is what your pudding should look like. Give it a good mix around the bowl, a lovely, thick, rich batter. Lovely, we're good to go. I'm going to grab my pudding basin and everything that I need, and we're going to move on to steaming. Okay, so steaming our pudding. This can be a whole Megillah by itself, but I'm going to break it down for you and make it really easy. Here I have my pudding bowl. As you can see, it's been well loved. This has a rim, which makes it really easy for steaming because we're going to tie twine around that. This is a 1.5 litre pudding basin, so quite big. So we're going to pile our pudding mixture into there, all the way to the top. You might be wondering to yourself why she's showing us how to make Christmas pudding in October, and the reason that it's done in October is because it needs time to mature. So like houses all around the country are making their Christmas cakes and their Christmas pudding and their mince pie meat around October timeframe, so it has time to develop flavour over the months and just get even better. So I'm not crazy, just a little bit crazy. Now, there we go, flatten that out. Lovely. Okay, tip number 1, this is an important one. A circle of parchment paper that is going to go around the very, very top of your pudding basin. As you can see here, I got a scissors and I clipped around here. Do you remember in the 80s and 90s when we used to do this and then we just stopped doing it? Clip it around there with your scissors, and as you can see, it just forms to the top of the pudding and to the bowl, just like that, with no creases or anything. Isn't that nice? So there you go. That's the parchment for the top of your pudding. Important because we need that parchment there. Next is foil, a foil hat. You want to seal that nicely around the pudding. Make sure it's a nice big piece because we want to protect it from any water getting in there. Okay, that's tip number 1, covering your pudding. Step 2 is making a twine handle for your pudding so you can easily transfer it from the hot pot onto the counter and things like that and just move it around easily. So here I have a double piece of twine, and what I'm going to do is under the lip of my pudding basin, this is why it's really important to have a pudding basin with a lip, we are going to tie our twine really tight underneath there. Cinch it really good. We only want a tiny bit of give, and then just cut off any excess twine. Now here we go again with more baker's twine. And we're going to create a handle. So my tip number 2 is tying up the pudding. So pull out the twine. See that we have tiny little bit of give there. Put in your doubled twine down here. Put it in the other side, like so. Bring those 2 ends together and then just tie them in the middle nice and tight again. If you need more clarification, I do have a post on biggerbolderbaking.com that breaks down how you can steam a pudding. There we go, just cut off any bits of extra twine. Now look at that. Now we have a sturdy pudding that we can easily and safely put in and out of our pot. Okay, so here's what we do now. We actually let this sit at room temperature for a minimum of 2 hours, and during this time, the flavors just all marry together and just gets even tastier and yummier. The alcohol gets into all of our breadcrumbs and our almonds and things like that. So give it 2 hours to hang out, and then we're going to pop it in the steamer. Okay, fast forward 2 hours, here we are ready to steam. So I have a pot here, a nice big pot with high sides. It's going to fit our pudding basin. In it, I have a steamer. I know that my mom does this in a pressure cooker, but I don't know how to use one of those. So this is what I'm doing. Here's what you want to do. This is tip number 3. Always have, when you're making puddings, a pot of boiling water. And what you want to do is bring the boiling water to the very bottom of the steamer, just to the base of it. Do you see that? You do not want the pudding sitting in water at all. You only want it to be at the base of your steamer, just like that. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and add in our pudding. And part of this tip also is every 20 minutes or so, go in and check the level of the water, add a little bit more hot water, make sure that it doesn't boil off because it can happen. So just keep that water topped up. That's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is a good one. Don't let moisture get into your pudding. And this is why we tied a really tight lid around it and put the parchment on. We don't want any of the steam to actually get into our pudding, especially also when you're topping up water. So be really careful of that. If that happens, it can actually turn your pudding moldy, and you don't want that. So just be careful that no water gets into your pudding while it's steaming. Our pudding is happy in the pot. It is going to steam for around 2.5 hours or so, which is a long time. That's why we're going to top it up with water. And when we come back, I'm going to show you the telltale sign, the last tip of how you can tell that it's done without having to remove all of our foil and our parchment. So it's been 2.5 hours. Let's check on our pudding. This is my 5th tip. How do you tell that your pudding is done without having to take off all the layers and put them back on or whatever? So here's what you want to do. Press down there on the center. If it is firm underneath your fingers, then it is ready to go. If it's soft, leave it in for longer, but 2.5 hours is a perfect amount of time to get this good and steamed. So I'm going to turn this off. It is good to go now. Like I said, we're ahead of Christmas, which is great. So if you want to make your puddings, let them cool down at room temperature until completely cool. Then you have to, if you're going to store them for an extended period of time, put on new parchment and put on new foil. That's really important to keep it nice and dry and stop it going moldy. We are going to enjoy ours right now. So follow me over and we're going to cut into this bad boy. So to get your pudding easily out of the bowl, just remove the foil and the parchment. And there you go, as you can see the way it's firm on top? Our pudding is perfectly steamed. Now I'm going to pop my serving plate on top and then just invert it. Remove my pudding bowl, and there we have my mom's beautiful Christmas pudding. Look how gorgeous that is. So traditional. This just really brings a smile to my face because this is what I grew up with as a child in Ireland. The smell of this just transports me home with boozy fruit, a lot of spices, brown sugar. I can even smell the breadcrumbs. These are all the ingredients that in Ireland we use during the holiday season. And the reason I love this the most is because it is steamed, so there's moisture in this cake. It is so soft and absolutely delicious. I like to serve mine with a little bit of brandy butter or whipped cream. You can even do vanilla ice cream. I have died and gone to heaven. Absolutely delicious. If this traditional recipe has you in the mood for some holiday baking, then stay put. I've got hours of holiday content for you to check out. And I'll see you back here again really soon.